So this week, obviously, we have the holdouts from last week, which is Discovery season 3, and
Yep.
Miss Juneteenth, which I actually did. I finally actually managed to watch. So
I still haven't seen it.
yeah. It's so then we have Penguin Bloom, and so we have Penguin Bloom and Sean. You said Fractured and Nick Cage.
Yeah, Nick Cage film Primal. It's
Okay.
just basically what it's been is I watched them. I was saying I was in. I mean, I got in quite late, and I was looking for. I thought I have seen stuff, but when I did you before I set off home, I sent the first
Yeah.
text before I cut off home, and then I suddenly remembered, obviously, and I just thought, oh yeah, Primal, because I watched that with Dan, and he said, oh, you reminded me, you told me to remind you we watched that film, not Primal, sorry, the other one, Fractured. So we watched
Fractured, yeah.
Fractured, but whereas I've been like the weekend, sometimes there's certain films that when you start watching, when I was talking about the rewatching, you just have to watch them again. So I did. It started off. I saw Lord of the Rings. I thought, oh well, I just as well carry on watching that. Fury. I watched Fury again, and so do you know what I mean? They're just on, and you have to. There's certain films. It's like Zulu or The Great Escape, or you can't help it. You just have to.
For me, Sound of Music.
Sound of Music. Yeah.
Sound of Music.
Yeah, let it go.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things I have to avoid. If I have anything to do, I have to avoid catching Sound of Music on TV.
Yeah.
Because you know that once you start one bit, you just be like, huh. And then 3 hours later. So-
I think it's really, really strange because I'm getting a bit. I think because I don't know if it's lack of cinema, but I'm not so invested. But I did see the new trailer for Kong vs Godzilla, and I thought I am not going to watch that on the streaming thing. I'm going to wait till it comes out of the cinema.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. I get you. I thought you were saying that. Oh no, that's not even going to do anything. I thought you were going to say that wasn't going to hit the spot for you. You're just going to avoid that film.
No. I'm just going to wait till it comes on the cinema because I think they're releasing it apparently in May. Is it May or sometime? Anyway, they're releasing it in May, I think, but they're releasing it on HBO.
HBO Max in the States. I don't know where it's going to come out over here.
So they want to release it in the cinema at the same time, but I can't see the cinemas being open myself.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. But anyway, welcome to Netflix versus Cinema. We have already started. we have already started. I can imagine that in the edit you would just have come in halfway through a conversation. It might have been, I don't know, about black eyes or something. But but welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that tries to do what it says on the tin, but just as we've just been saying, there are no cinemas. So what we're doing is we're just talking Netflix stuff. We're talking things that we've been watching on TV through the lockdown, and I think that there's a little bit of a study almost of how our viewing habits have changed from watching things in cinemas to watching things on TV. My name is Tosin. I am the host. I am up in Bromsgrove in the Midlands. Joining me as ever on the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hiya.
Yes, now, okay, we've already kicked off on some of this stuff, but today we were going to talk mostly about two new Star Wars. No, not Star Wars. Oh my God. Sharon, can you hear that?
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. I can feel them coming for me. I mean, sorry, Star Trek shows.
That light outside are those people with torches and pitchforks.
Yeah, pitchforks coming around to my house. Oh no, not again. Yes, Star Trek, two new Star Trek TV shows, which we're going to talk about Discovery Season 3, and we're going to talk about Lower Decks. We are also going to talk about Miss Juneteenth, which is a film that Sean has been keeping on the back burner until I could actually find. I've got an annoying story to tell you about watching Miss Juneteenth
Right.
that Sean has been keeping back until I could actually watch until I could watch it to talk about. And also Sean was talking about because you haven't really had the best of watching things, have you, recently? Because it's hard to get invested.
It is hard to get invested, and like some of the things. Well, I mean, if I'm going to talk about them later, some of the things are just not like, So
Yeah. Okay. Talking about some of the things that are a bit. Let's kick off with a film that I'm going to come straight out the gate and say I have no real hope for. So you saw a Nicolas Cage movie called Primal. Now, okay, yes, your face and your snigger says everything and confirms all my fears. Now, after we spoke, I think 2 weeks ago, we spoke about Nick Cage in the history of swear words.
We did, yeah.
Looking like he was finally having fun. I'm guessing that this is a film that comes from his his straight to DVD hell period.
yeah, pretty much. It's So, well, what can I say really? He's this big game hunter, and he's in South America, and he's captured some exotic animals. And he's captured this special white jaguar thing, and he's going to ship them over, but on the container ship there's also some US Marshals, and they're shipping over a criminal assassin guy that they want for trial and all that. And of course, what happens? The criminal escapes, lets all the animals free. So...
What? No.
No way. No way. So anyway, I thought, oh well. I mean, this was early on, and this was sort of a few days ago, and I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to watch this. And I think it yeah, I know. Anyway, I think it could have been good, but Tosin, this one, I was talking about my 2 or 5 minute spoiler rants. I could probably do a 10-minute one on this. I really, really could. It's the most awful. It's absolutely nonsense. It's like, you've got loads and loads of weapons there. You got like the poison darts, and so I won't say what happens, but you could imagine. Like the blowpipes and things, and you got all these snakes and monkeys and things running around, and and as I say, the killer or the assassin is obviously just escaped wrecking havoc. And you've got this little subplot with this doctor who's supposed to be looking after the assassin, because he's not allowed to fly because he's got some sort of disease that if he flies he dies. So,
yeah. Movie reasons.
Yeah, just reasons. So yeah, and it's. I mean, I could imagine that's. I don't know. This goes in the Fast and Furious. So yeah, just.
So far it sounds like someone is trying to take Jurassic Park, put it on a boat, snakes on a plane, put it on a boat.
Yeah. It's all them memes and silly things with, like, when people do get killed, or people just do silly stuff. You know what I mean? Silly. Why? I'm like there. I'm going. I'm not like, because I haven't got like anybody to show off to, but I'm like, oh, what? Why would you do that? Oh no! Come on! So I watched it for. Really, I should enjoy those, shouldn't I? Because I should be like, oh, come on, yeah, what load of. So yeah, it was. Well, I suppose being Nick Cage. I mean, I know he gets a bad press, but he deserves it.
I think because have you guys ever seen the TV show Community?
People have spoken about it, but I've never seen it.
So Community. So there's one of these things where they have a course called Nicolas Cage, good or bad, and there's a whole episode where they're trying to figure out whether Nicolas Cage is a good actor or a bad actor based on his filmography. And I think that there's actually a study to be done. So in this, he says he gets a bad rap. Does he look like he's even bothered in this film?
He doesn't look bothered at all.
Yeah.
He doesn't look. He's just going through the motions, going through the numbers.
Yeah.
Just doing it by the numbers in that. I don't know. It's quite funny. Quite funny. Almost a comedy, I think. Almost a comedy.
Well, I feel like there is some sort of perverse pleasure to be had from watching those sort of direct-to-video Nicolas Cage movies. So, are you even going to bother rating this film?
I will give it a rating, because as I think back on it now, I mean, the film's awful. It is really, really, really terrible. But I suppose for me, for entertainment, I mean, if I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, I'd give it a 2-star just because it's I feel like being too mean. And I don't mind Nicolas Cage films. I don't mind his car ones, like I think it was Drive Angry, but this was pretty awful. But I'm going to give it 2 stars because I stayed to the end. I watched it out to the end, even though I could have said no, I'm not going to do it. But I was sort of compelled to see how bad it was. So I think for keeping me entertained with nonsense, I'm gonna have to give it a 2-star. All
right, good stuff. So 2 stars. We kicked off with Nick Cage on Primal, and we'll get over to the other film that your housemate landlord Dan, who likes like everything we post on Facebook. So thank you to Dan for us.
Okay.
He likes all the little snippets of discussion. I put up the discussion of our Leo Sayer that we had like off air last week. I put that up on Facebook earlier today. Dan's liked it already, so say thank you to Dan.
Yeah, actually, I wondered why. I mean, I've seen that, but I wondered why you said, "Oh, what did Leo Sayer do then?" and all that, and he's talking to me. So I had to put some stuff on. I thought, that's random. Where did that come from? And now I know. Oh, right, because he didn't say he'd seen it. He just said, "So what did Leo Sayer do?" You know.
Yeah. So Dan Guster, you are a type of man. So okay, now let's move on to Sharon. So Sharon, we have Star Trek on the first of the Star Trek shows we're going to talk about today, Star Trek Discovery Season 3. Now, when you put this up, you said, I think at the end of last week's episode, we actually even spoke a little bit about the fact that you were like, I finally got myself together and binge all the last 4 episodes. So, do you want to? So, for what I remember, I've recently finished watching Season 2, mostly on your recommendation, where you said you were talking about the Red Angel and how it was all good, and I think you really enjoyed Season 2 and Captain Pike and Spock showing up and everything. So, Season 3, tell us what it's about, how the story goes on, and why you ended up having to force yourself to binge watch the last 4 episodes.
Yeah, well, Season 3, a quick recap is the Star Trek Discovery is like using it's a prototype. It's a Starfleet vessel that has found a new means of propulsion. It's called a spore drive, and it's unlike any other ship in Starfleet. But it's set before the original series. It starts off, and when we watch it, you go, "Oh, how does that work out then? How could they suddenly have all this advanced technology?" And yet, the Star Trek that we know has regressed. Technology doesn't generally regress.
Yeah.
And then they explain all that, and they explain how that Spock had a sister, and they explain how certain technologies became banned. So they create this story, then they create a
reason why this story doesn't exist. Why you haven't heard this story before.
How it can happen. Basically, because a lot of this technology has been developed and it becomes dangerous very quickly, and it imperils the universe as we know it.
Yeah.
Obviously. And so they suppress everything about the Discovery. And one of the things that the crew decide is that because the Red Angel and the events that have happened there, they have an opportunity to go into the future.
I think at the moment it's pretty much impossible to talk about Season 3 of this show without, in part, spoiling Season 2.
Yeah, you can't get there.
It's impossible, so we're going to try and keep the spoilers to the absolute minimum, but it's impossible.
Yeah, but it's impossible. But I'll be restrained in the detail. So at the end of the Red Angel, it transpires was from the future.
Yeah.
And so they use a technology that brought the Red Angel to the past to take them into the future. And so the Discovery and Michael Burnham, who is our main protagonist, she's in her Red Angel suit, and so they ping into the future by about 950 plus years, basically about 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And the universe as we recognize it has changed. It's no longer the world of the Federation. An event happened that has changed the way they approach technology, and that it changed Starfleet, and it changed the alliances of planets that have been the basis of all the previous incarnations.
Yeah.
And as the story progresses, we understand what happened, and then as you get to the end of the series, you understand why it happened. And so there's the adventure of the week, but it all adds up to the ultimate, denouement or the revelation about, okay, this is what actually has happened.
All right, so with this, I've seen about the first 5 episodes of Season 3, and to begin with, I quite enjoyed the thing at the beginning, because the fact that they took it into the future has broken this away from the usual Star Trek formula, in the fact that they're not top of it. All of a sudden, something that was cutting edge technology, all of a sudden everybody else has technology that's better than them. They're all displaced. They don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. It's almost a bit like, I guess a bit like Voyager, but this is a bit more like the code of the Federation that's supposed to keep them together is under serious threat, because that might not even exist anymore 1,000 years in the future. So the first couple of episodes, I was like, this is actually quite good. But so for you, as you carried on, what happened? How did the feeling go in the rest of the season?
Yeah, to me, it began to flag a bit. I don't know. I can't put my finger on why. I sort of, because it's on Netflix. Every now and then they sort of drop a whole series on you.
Yeah.
But occasionally they do release one a week.
Yeah.
In a traditional format where, you know, on a certain day of the week they release the new episode. And so Discovery was released every Friday.
Yeah.
And it used to be that, you know, every Friday me and my brother would sit down when he'd come in from work and we would watch it. And then, I don't know, we got to the point where neither of us fancied watching it one week. We just thought, oh no, should we not bother this week? And then I think it got to be like 4 or 5. And then I suddenly thought, oh, I haven't seen Discovery for 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I thought it must be near the end of the season. So I counted up how many previous episodes there'd been. I thought, oh yeah, well, there's only, you know, this is it. It's the end of the season. So I could probably get those watched.
Yeah.
But I think it lost me a little bit in that I wasn't quite sure what it was trying to do.
Mm.
Whether it was trying to recreate the world of Star Trek's gone by, or whether it was trying to do something different. And I think they didn't do one or the other, for me, entirely successfully.
Yeah.
In trying to sort of like hark back to the familiar Star Trek, I thought, one day you're missing an opportunity. But then they held enough of this sort of remnants onto it to make me think, well, you're not being bold enough. So they either were like, not, it was, to me, it didn't quite work. And to be honest with you, even after 3 series, I know Captain Burnham, I know Tilly, I know Saru, but I could not name any of the other crew. I mean, it's been 3 seasons, and I should know who the deck crew are.
Detmer.
And I don't.
Detmer's the pilot. Owosha-kun is the one who sits beside her. I noticed her because I had the subtitles on once, and she has a Yoruba name, which is my tribe, and I'm like, oh, look at you, Star Trek with your representation, yeah. And yeah, then it kind of slows down.
But you see the same faces every week, but none of them stand out.
Yeah.
You can immediately go through like Zulu, and you got Scotty in the bed, but even the ones who have a personality, I find them very bit forgettable.
Is there any lackeys that get killed? Like the ones that wear
the red shirt.
The red shirts, the ones that always you think, yeah, they go off on mission. Well, they never return. There's always a couple there.
It's quite a different setup. They don't tend to have the away party because every time in the old Trek, whenever there was an away party, if you didn't recognise them, they were cannon fodder. Just like,
that's it. Yeah.
So in this one, they do kill off some of the big name players every now and then, and I think it's because the actor wants to move on rather than they do it for a dramatic purpose. Because sometimes I think, oh yeah, they obviously wanted to do something else. I don't, and you don't feel that sort of like, oh no, they've gone, because to me they've all been a little bit forgettable.
Yeah.
I think because it's changed so much, each season has a completely different look.
Yeah.
I don't feel that I've got to invest in any of the particular characters.
Ariam.
Even Michael Burnham to some degree.
Ariam. There's one character called Ariam who because
is she the one who used to have the breathing thing on her face?
Oh no. That was her name's Non or something like that, the one with the breathing things on her face. But the Ariam was the android, the one who had most of who crashed and then had most of was pretty much a robot.
Yes.
Yeah, she's the one. And I actually thought that one of the best things that they did, because I agree with you, they don't really give a lot of people a backstory. But they had one episode where in one episode you got to get her entire backstory. And I found that it was actually really, really effective in making you care for that one character in a very short space of time. But like Sharon to talk, you know, when they usually when they would send Kirk down with like a couple of red shirts around him as a sort of human shield.
Yeah, that's right.
In Discovery, it seems that whenever they go down, they always send an important person and a very, very and a much smaller group of people will go down there. So you kind of know, well, they have plot armor. They're not going to die. So I think because to me somehow it just doesn't quite gel for me personally. I think I really rated the second season. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah,
I really liked the beginning of this one, but then for me it just sort of went. Ooh.
Yeah.
So it did pick up a little bit at the end, but I'm not entirely convinced that it's got legs. To be honest with you.
So how many stars did you give it?
I give it 3. I think if you are invested in the Trekkerverse, and I've watched nearly every incarnation of it since they played the repeats of the original series on the television in the 70s. So I have watched more or less all of them.
Yeah.
Can't say I've seen every single episode of everything, but I've been interested in all of them. So I'd give it a 3, but to me, it's probably not the best.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I haven't seen much Trek, but I know there was a point, I think probably around about the beginning of season 3, when I said, I actually texted a friend of mine, Yatish, who we've interviewed on the show, and he's quite into Star Trek, and I was like, I think Discovery is my favorite version of Star Trek, but I think I've hit the point where I think it's beginning to flag. I'm like, what are you doing with this? Where are you going with this?
Yeah, where is it really going?
You had some promise, and you seem to be veering away from it. So going from a Star Trek that is trying to do something a little bit different, but maybe not quite managing it, to a Star Trek that isn't trying to do something different at all, which is Star Trek Lower Decks. Well, and the whole idea of the title tells you what it's about. It's not about the bridge crew. This is not about the bridge crew. This is about the guys who sit at the bottom, very, very, very bottom of the starship. They're like they essentially live beside the engines. That's what these guys are, and it's animated. It's half an hour. But so imagine if you had a self-aware Star Trek series that was half an hour and was comedic as opposed to being dramatic, and that's what you'll get. So they still do go on all these missions, but how they talk about first contact in Star Trek? It's a big thing, the first time you meet a new race. Yeah. And they say that they're on a ship called the USS Cerritos, and they say, yeah, we it's like, first contact and all that amazing, wonderful stuff. Well, that's not us. We're the second contact crew. We're essentially the admin. We go in there after you've met a new, and so they have nods to all the other different versions of Star Trek. Some of them which I get, and I'm sure there's quite a few in there that I just do not get. They have this whole thing about a planet that Kirk went to, where they have a computer called Landru, which I think is from the original series. And they even make they make references to Kirk and Picard. Riker shows up at one point, so this is set shortly after the Next Generation, I believe. But it is the main thing about it is that they are trying to be funny. That their aim is to be funny. It's a bit like, there's bits of it that are a bit like Family Guy set in the Star Trek universe almost. and I actually quite liked it. I mean, I burned through these. I burned through these like in no time, because they're only half an hour. You can finish them off in a day. You can finish them off in a day. And I think for something that plays with the Star Trek thing, makes fun of the Star Trek thing, it has its own storyline as well about somebody who is one of the most demoted people in Starfleet history, because she can't handle doing things the Starfleet way. She's like, no, we've got to help people and all that. So I think Lower Decks is worth it. I think it's actually quite funny. It's not trying to do anything too big. It's just trying to be almost like a comedic take on Star Trek that points out some of the silly things about Star Trek. Like, there's things where people have transporter accidents, where they get stuck in between two phases and all that kind of stuff. And so I would recommend it. I think Lower Decks is actually is good fun. It's a high 3. I would give Lower Decks a high 3. Not quite a 4, because I don't think it's massively anything groundbreaking. And for all the bits where it's making fun of Star Trek, it is still in essence a Star Trek show. It has the sort of same arcs, the same going down to the landing parties, the same, we're going to get to the end of the season and there's going to be this big climatic battle. And but it does make fun of some Star Trek tropes, like how there's a whole thing involving a holodeck where they do a Star Trek Lower Decks movie, and they always talk about the fact that why is it that whenever you do a Star Trek movie, the ship always gets destroyed and then gets rebuilt by the next movie, and it's all nice and it's shiny. And they do a lot of stuff of ripping it out of Star Trek, which I actually quite like, but I think it's a high 3 for me. So that's what Amazon Prime.
Is it sanctioned by the Star Trek universe? Because obviously it uses the name.
Oh yeah.
It obviously is real characters, so it's obviously sanctioned by the Star Trek.
It's official. It's official. It even has a Roddenberry. There's even a Roddenberry is listed in the credits. I think it's Eugene Roddenberry.
Proper stamp. Yeah.
So it has like the proper stamp of yes, we sanction this, we agree with this. It's not like Robot Chicken or something like that, but it's
No.
it's not like that. But it is out there, and it is pretty much like Family Guy in the Star Trek universe. It is pretty much like that. Right. So let us move forward, and Sean, let's see what else you have for us. Oh, shall we talk some Miss Juneteenth?
Miss Juneteenth, yeah. Let's talk Miss Juneteenth. So, I don't know if you probably be able to give a brief synopsis of the story more than me, and then.
Well, the thing about it is, okay. First of all, when you hear Juneteenth is what has become more and more of a thing in America, because it refers to June 19th, and it refers to the fact that when slavery stopped in America, when they signed, I think it was the Emancipation Proclamation.
Yes,
that
right.
Lincoln signed, that Texas was the last state. Texas was the last state to say no, that to actually accept the Emancipation Proclamation, and they did it on June 19th. So amongst Black Americans, June 19th is seen as their Independence Day, and they're like, look, we have a holiday for Independence Day. We have a holiday for all these different things. Why is June 19th not a public holiday? Because this is a big, massive moment in our history. So it's a day that has a whole bunch of things around it, because for Black Americans, they see it as another state of trying to sweep the history of what happened to us under the carpet by not acknowledging this day. So when you hear the film's called Miss Juneteenth, you know there's going to be something around this. So that was what but when it comes to
the basis.
Yeah, well, that's the basis. But the film itself is based really around a real life pageant that exists called Miss Juneteenth, which is all about finding young Black women, doing a beauty pageant for young Black women, and the winner gets a full scholarship to a historically Black college or university in America, which is something that you don't really have anywhere else in the world. Because I remember once I went to a conference in America, and they're talking about HBCUs, and I was like, what the hell's an HBCU? And the historically Black college and university, I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, because of segregation, there are some universities that historically were where the Black people went. And so it's now going to the point where there's a lot of Black people want to go to those universities because they feel that is a place where we can actually connect with our culture. But anyway, Sean, you saw this film.
Yes.
What did you think about it? And you said you were really, really keen to know what I thought about it. But let's go with you first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was really, really engrossed in this film. I thought it was an excellent portrayal of you know, it was really interesting for me, because you don't really, you know, I knew nothing about this Miss Juneteenth, and obviously looking about it, and like Texas was the last. So there's a lot of history there, but also it was really, so you had that history thing, but this was really, really entertaining, and it was a real insight into a sort of community, you know, because there were, and there's just the characters, all the different characters, you know, like the husband and the guy who owns a funeral place and all that. And it was just like totally normal life, and you know, the mother's aspiration. And I think Tosin, it was so well acted. I think it was absolutely brilliant. The acting, for me, I was just convinced by the whole thing, and I thought, yeah, that is a whole picture of you know, a certain community, how it's lived, all the. And yeah, no, it's great. It's really, I thought it was fantastic. I totally enjoyed it. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because it was just so engrossing, because it was something, you know, when you see things and you think, I mean, I saw it really probably by accident, you know, I was just looking for something to watch, and I put it on, and I thought, oh, this looks interesting. And it really was. And it had me engrossed. And who's the actress who played the daughter? Who's the actress that actually was in the Goes to the Pageant?
The actress who plays the daughter is called Alexis Chikaeze.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely brilliant, and you know, like trying to get the money for all the different, you know what I mean, trying to get, and that is what ambitious mothers do, you know what I mean, and trying all the different things, and it's tough, and it's hard work, and it's just, but yeah, no, great. I thought this was terrific. So that's why I was interested to see what you think, because you might totally shock me.
No. So the because the basic story is about a woman who won the Miss Juneteenth pageant as a teenager herself, and she now has a daughter. She's grown up. She has a daughter, and she wants her daughter to win the pageant because I think she feels that she won the pageant and she didn't make the most with the opportunities that she got from winning the pageant. So it's implied that she got pregnant quite young.
Quite young, yeah.
Yeah, she got pregnant quite young. So I figured it out that she won the pageant 15 years before the events of this film took place, and she now has a 15-year-old daughter. So, so you do the math and you figure out what happened. So she feels like she didn't do enough. So she wants her daughter to win this pageant, because if her daughter wins this pageant, then she can have all these opportunities and she can do something better with them. And you have this, you get a real sense of this living from hand to mouth existence. The fact she has 2 jobs. She works at the bar, but she also works in a funeral parlor. And it's how the father of her child is somebody who she's married to, but are they actually still together or not? But there's another guy who's on the scene who might be better for her because he's more stable, and so you have all these options that she's sort of like juggling all around this whole idea of, but the film keeps alluding that this takes place in a society of black people in Texas who are still trying to figure out a way of making their own way. Like there's the guy who owns the bar. He talks about the fact that the white folk downtown keep offering money to take this land off my hands, but this is mine. And it's the fact that I own something, and owning something and making something of what you own is a theme that runs throughout the film. It's like, what does it mean to actually own something? And that spoke to me as somebody who's just finally actually got a house and is no longer just paying rent, but actually paying something towards a pot of money that might do something for me in the future. that spoke to me. So I agree with you. I think it's really, really well acted. I think Nicole Beharie, who plays the mother, she plays Turquoise, Nicole Beharie.
Turquoise. And
the whole film, I think, rises and falls on her face. Because, it's all about, like, almost everything. Because when you think about it, the fact that it is a pageant, once you have something set around a pageant, it has a real tendency to become stupid. And whether it means something or what it means to her, how she can put all her hopes in it, all rises and falls on her face, and she sells it. But sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say what I think was really good as well is all the previous winners. Like, you got the gaggle of, you know what I mean? The older ladies that like the big, and you can imagine.
It gets a bit Mean Girls.
It does, yeah. So it does, but I mean, what I mean is this: it's convincing. It's not like silly or. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
It's one of those slice of life films. I mean,
slice of life. Yeah.
Some people might complain that not much happens, and it's all about the tiny minutiae, almost petty things that mean a lot, and the importance that these people have put on these tiny things. Where she has a lot of importance on it, her daughter doesn't really have much on it, and I think thematically it's a bit similar. Sharon, if you remember the film Dumpling.
Yes, I was thinking of Dumpling actually when you were talking about it. About how the mum had won, and then it had different resonations with it, but how it how the mothers bring their own baggage to the pageant in some ways.
Exactly.
The daughters they either embrace it, or some ways they have to resist this sort of legacy.
Yeah, so they have that bit in there, but obviously with them it's kind of like, because as a slice of life, they point out the fact that Turquoise is finding it very, like, whatever she's trying to do, she's finding it very, very difficult to break out of the life that she's in. She's finding it very difficult to find a new way out. So the whole idea is that the stakes here are, this is a way out of this sort of quagmire that we found ourselves in. And and I think they sell it. I think it's actually really, really good. I would give the film a 4 out of 5.
I would give it a 4 out of 5 as well. I would. I mean, I was really surprised. I think, as I say, for all those massive, like, huge, big blockbustery budgets, sometimes a film like this, which is a slice of life, is I think is so definitely a 4-star. I mean, I thought it was a good film, and as I say, I think the acting was first class by all.
All right, cool. Right, so that was Miss Juneteenth, a bit of a hidden gem, and I told you, Sean, I was going to tell you an annoying story with watching this. So I know, obviously, you said that you'd seen Miss Juneteenth. So I was like, okay, Sean saw it, so that means, and I don't think Sean paid to see this, so it means it must have been on like Netflix, or it must have been on Amazon Prime, And I spent 2 weeks searching for this thing on Netflix. Couldn't find it on Netflix. Couldn't find it on Amazon Prime. Well, Amazon Prime, it said, yeah, you can find it if you pay $3.99. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And I searched all over. Oh, let's see, what else did I have? Okay, Disney Plus. I didn't expect it to be on Disney Plus. And I searched all the different things that I have access to, and I couldn't find it. And eventually I was like, oh, rubbish. No, Sean's been waiting for 2 weeks to watch this thing. I should actually just... Fine, I'll pay the $3.99. I can't believe it. It cuts me deep in my heart, but I'll pay $3.99. So I paid $3.99, and then my brother got in touch with me, and he was like, "Oh, Miss Juneteenth, isn't that on Now TV?" And I was like, "Rubbish!"
It's on. Yeah, it was on Sky Movies.
Yeah,
it was on Sky Movies.
It's on Sky. Yeah, it's on Sky Movies, and I was like, "Oh, I forgot about that one." So yeah, it's. I mean, okay, we've spoken on the podcast how I come from an area in Nigeria. Well, my tribe is Yoruba. It's a section of the tribe that I come from. I call the Ijebu, and how it hurts us to spend money, especially when we didn't have to spend it. and I'm just kind of like, I didn't have to spend that money. Oh my god, that £4 is gonna mock me for the rest of my life. but yeah. Okay, so now we carry on. And Sharon, you have seen something called Penguin Bloom on Netflix.
Yes, this is a new release on Netflix, a film. It's, you'd probably categorize it as a feel-good inspirational film, but without any religious overtones. It's not about, there's no sort of faith element, but, there's sort of like that, it's sort of inspirational, true story type thing. So basically, you start off seeing the story through the eyes of this young lad. His name is Noah Bloom. And on a family holiday to Thailand, his mum and dad and his 2 younger brothers are on holiday. And him and his mum go up to the top of this Thai tower just to look at the view.
Yeah.
And she falls through a fence. A rotten piece of wood basically gives way as she sort of leans on it. And she falls from a height and breaks her back. She calls, and in the film it refers to it as her bra strap. So basically the top T6 or 7 or something. But yeah, and she becomes paralyzed from that point on. And so this young lad sort of tells his story, and then as the story progresses, you meet them like a year later, where they're all trying to come to terms with the new way of life. Dad, played by Andrew Lincoln, is desperately trying to keep things together, managing 3 small boys who are sort of running riot, basically, and sort of like, it's sort of coastal Australia. I don't know the exact town, but they've all been very active. They've been surfing, they go hiking, they spend a lot of time on the beach. They've always been like an activity-based family. They ran together, they jogged together. They did a lot together because they were this active outdoors family. And then suddenly mum is like lying in bed. And as time goes on, basically, whenever they feel poorly, it's like, Dad, because, mum is like, she's there, but
she can't do anything.
Periphery of their lives. And they're all beginning to get to this point where they don't know quite what the future will hold for them, because she's giving in to sort of like depression and despair, and they're trying to move on, but they feel guilty that they can't move on because mum's not there. So the whole family are finding it difficult. And then one day on the beach, this little boy finds an injured baby Australian magpie, and he takes it home. And because it's black and white, he decides to name it Penguin. And then the story basically progresses, without going into any more detail, of how basically this sort of penguin, the little bird, becomes a catalyst for basically re-engaging their mum into their lives and into embracing the next part of her life. And mum is played by Naomi Watts, and there's a few sort of character Australian actors in there. And so basically it's like this, having to care for the bird and then caring for herself and then finding new opportunities. It's the sort of story of like rehabilitation for this lady who thought her life was over, basically. And this little bird is a catalyst for her to think, well, actually my life is different, but it's not necessarily over. And the little boy, Noah, his name is, he's basically telling the story from his point of view, because he was the one who was with his mum when she had the accident.
Yeah.
And a lot of part of how he feels is like, was it his fault? Whenever there's this sort of catastrophic event in a family, then normally everyone goes through that element of soul searching. You know, could I have done something different? Could we have done anything that would have changed the outcome of this event?
It's based on a book written by a guy called Cameron Bloom. You don't know whether it's based on a true story, do you?
It is based on a true story, yeah. Cameron Bloom is the dad, and Sam Bloom is the lady who's paralysed.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that they seek to do to help her rehabilitation is, because she loved the water so much, is to see if she can do kayaking, because it's all about upper body and balance.
Yeah.
And so she starts kayaking, and that is again is one of the means that they sort of seek to help her rehabilitate and to sort of embrace life as it is now, not regret what it once was, but to see, okay, you've got a lot of living still to do. And so yes, this Cameron Bloom is a photographer by trade, and so he basically captured this story through photographs and did a book about it.
Yeah.
And then that book became a film.
All right. So, okay, with something like this, it could, whenever you have, like, you know, a sort of true life triumph over adversity, it can go one of two ways. It can either be sort of like, you know, schmaltzy to the end where you don't care it's real anymore, or it can actually be life affirming. What do you think? How does this one go?
I think that it steered the right side of it, to be honest with you, because a lot of these films, they can be quite sickening, and I think they either go down the whole line of, oh, you know, cheer up, it's not that bad, and then, you know, it cannot feel real, and you think people have to go through a grieving process, and that grieving process isn't quick.
Yeah.
And like with the bereavement, it can take years to get over a bereavement.
Yeah.
And she was, you know, she had lost something enormous.
Yeah.
What was a bereavement? And so I think it recognised that someone who has this sort of catastrophic injury is not going to be Mrs. Perky from the day they get out of the hospital, and that they are going to go through depression, anger, grief, because you know they've lost something.
Yeah.
But they won't get back. They just have a new way. And I think the way it showed the fact that there is anger, there's grief, there's regret, but there's still hope, was they steered it the right side of sentimentality. Because with the bird, especially with the baby bird, you're just thinking, oh, this is going to be.
It's like, oh my God, it's Free Willy with a bird.
It's going to be. I don't know if I can bear it, but you know how it is when I get that. I call it like a Wednesday afternoon panic, where I'm thinking I've got to watch something, and so I was scrolling, and it was like it sort of landed on the. I'm going to play the trailer whether you want me to or not, sort of thing. I was like, I just watched that. I'll watch that.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, since we started doing the podcast, it has added to my list of Wednesday afternoon panics. like where we when we did have cinemas around before the lockdown hit, I know that
what's on tonight?
There'll be times when you'll be sat down there on a Wednesday looking at the film, looking at the film listings at the cinema, going, can I make it? The time is work. Oh, so if I go at 2:00 and I do this, it has added to my Wednesday afternoon panics. So
I think on that note, I think that I am becoming. I mean, I'm finding myself, as I say, I'm watching sort of more documentary type things on YouTube. I'm watching a lot of sport. I'm not really. I've not got that. I don't think I've got that oomph to watch films. You know what I mean? It's just as a matter of fact. If you happen to be, like you said, you go, oh, you know, Wednesday comes along, and I think, you know, I'm not being. It's not like I want to see a film. Like when the cinemas are open, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that to come out. Oh, I can't wait. Oh, that looks good. You know, and you see the trailers there and you think, yeah. Of course, I'm not really seeing any trailers. So I'm not becoming inspired. So I'm just sort of practically watching stuff as come on. But there's other stuff that's much more interesting than the films I've seen, barring Miss Juneteenth. You know, the rest has been pretty much like, oh, you know.
We will get onto one of those in a second. But first, Sharon, scores.
I would give it a high 3, because I thought the acting was all very well done. You know, it steered clear of sentimentality. I think, because I think that sort of type of film is in some ways limited by its. You can't help but have a certain formula. So I think that stops it from being truly outstanding. But to me, for what it did, what it was supposed to do, it told a real story with sympathy and with a delicacy of touch, but it doesn't sort of lay it on too hard, too thick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would rate it, but to me, it sort of stops it from, from being great to being good. So I'd say it was a good film. So I would give it a high 3.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a bit like when you have like I think when we were talking about what was it called? Oh, I can't remember the name of the film now. But it had Jamie Foxx. It had Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan in it. Just Mercy. That was it. Just Mercy.
Just Mercy.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember talking about that. It's like when you talk about a courtroom drama about a black man who has possibly been a true life story about a black man who was falsely accused. There's
a miscarriage of justice.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I remember looking at it going, "There's only so good this film can be." There's only so good. Yeah. It can't really be outstanding, but there's only so good this film could be. And all right, so now, sure, we're going to go into one of these films that have failed to inspire you. One called Fractured, not starring Nick Cage. This is the one that Dan made sure you remember that you'd watch, so you would talk about it on the podcast. And as we know, Dan listens to everything, and Dan likes everything on Facebook, so we better talk about it.
We better talk about it, because that was it. Because like I said, when I said I'd come in late, he said, "Oh, you told me to remind you about Fractured." And I'm so glad you did, Dan. You're a star. I've got something. And then from that, I remembered, and that Nick Cage movie. And I was like, Dan, good man. So, yeah. All right. So Fractured. So we watched this. It was just, and so the story, basically, there's a couple when they've got a daughter in the car and they're driving away from a Thanksgiving thing and they're rowing a little bit. They're not getting on, the husband and wife.
Yep.
And they pull over at a garage. And there's a bit of an accident, and the little girl fractures her arm. So they're going to rush. They say, "Oh, we should get to the hospital." And they go, "No, I've still saw a hospital down the road. So they go to this hospital down the road.
This sounds great. It sounds like
this sounds great. So the hospital down the road. They go in there. It's just there's a little bit. He happens to look over and he just sees in an ambulance live organs parts, so like that, and he watches it. Anyway, he goes in, he tries to get himself, he gets a bit shirty with the receptionist, says, "Oh, my daughter needs to see someone," and then he has to do all the forms, and the nurse asks him, she's on the computer, she says, "Oh, would your daughter be an organ donor," and all that, and he's like, what? Anyway, he goes for all that. Anyway. Hello.
Can you say descendants of Norman Bates?
and so it's like, anyway, so the thing comes up, they go, "Oh yeah, we've given an X-ray, CAT scan, it's fractured, you're gonna have to go down, but it's just the mother and the daughter can go down, the daughter's in a wheelchair." They said, "Oh, we're really sorry, but because of certain conditions and all that." So he goes, "Okay, I'll wait." So and then obviously, so he goes in the waiting room and he sort of wakes up. And the things have changed, and there's no trace of his wife and his daughter.
Yeah.
So, it's like a bit.
But there's an ambulance pulling out with,
Well, that was sort of before, which is you can understand from this film now thinking back on it, you can understand why the whole film went the way it did.
Okay.
So I don't really. It's quite interesting. So I don't want to give away any. But obviously he's trying to do this thing, and they say. The doctors are really funny with him, and then he sees people going in wheelchairs into this lift, so he's like tries to disguise himself and get into the lift to see what's going on. The police turn up, and there's they say, "Okay, well, let's go through the thing, let's go and see." So it was pretty standard fare. Should we and I'm not going to give away any spoilers, so it was quite, you thought, "Oh yeah, I know where this is going, I know where this is going." And then it doesn't go that way, and then it does go that way, and then it doesn't go that way. So it's sort of, there's a couple of little should we say diversions in there, which is like, "Oh right, okay then, so maybe this is, maybe this is," and then it's like, "Oh right, okay," and then so and I mean it's probably worth watching till the end, because it does get. I mean, it's pretty standard fare for. This is one of those films that It's like, oh yeah, for the first half, and actually gets a little bit better in the latter half.
Okay.
Normally it goes the other way with me, so
okay.
Yeah, so
that's good because it's the lead is played by Sam Worthington.
Yeah.
Who?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean who. It's one of the things where I'm trying not to be mean, but but essentially, when I see Sam Worthington in a film now,
Avatar.
it's not a guarantee of a good time. Let me put it that way.
No, well, he sort of burst onto the scene, and he was sort of everywhere, wasn't he? He was,
for like there was like a
Clash of the Titans.
There was like a 3-year period where it was Avatar, Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans, and then there was Terminator Salvation, and he was like flavor of the month, and then it just seemed to be like people going, actually, I'm not sure he has anything else to offer. Well, that's me personally going. I'm like, I'm not sure he has it. Like, I don't think I've seen a film where I've seen him going, oh my god, it's amazing, you gotta see it, it's got Sam Worthington in it. I don't think I've ever seen a film like that. No. So it's but the fact that you said that it twists and turns and it doesn't always do what you expect it to do, just giving this a couple more points.
Yeah.
You've sort of elevated it slightly from that thinking, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
To thinking, oh, actually.
Well,
Fractured on Netflix.
Yeah, Fractured on Netflix. Yeah. So it's I mean, it was. You sort of thought, yeah, it's going this way. No, it's going that way. Then it's going that way, and then oh yeah, maybe it is going that way. So yeah, so it's quite as I say, it's a film with two halves, pretty standard fare. And so yeah. So there's a few silly moments in it when he's trying to get into the elevator and sort of having a bit of a shenanigans with some of the doctors and the guards and being a bit threatening to some of the doctors and that. But apart from that, it's an okay movie. It's an okay movie, and I will have to say I'll probably give this a low 3. A low 3.
A low 3. That's pretty much my standard rating for Sam Worthington.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, we're gonna move on. All right, now, so that is all we need to talk about. All we had to talk about. All we were gonna review. But before we end up, in the week in which Netflix have announced that Bridgerton is their biggest hit ever. Like, Bridgerton has been. I think they've had it has 82 million individual views. Now, Netflix say to count it as an individual view, it means that somebody has to have watched it for 2 minutes without breaking off. So people have watched 2 minutes of 82 million people have watched 2 minutes of Bridgerton. That's what we said. And I know, Sharon, you reviewed it the other week, but I caught up with it and I actually watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because my wife was like, "Oh yeah, let's watch this," and so we started watching it. And it's funny because I know you said we use all sorts of also terms about talking about Bridgerton. We said, oh, it's kind of like Jane Austen, like bro, it's like Gossip Girl and petticoats, all these different things. And you spoke
historical fantasy,
historical fantasy. And but I actually think it's really, really well plotted. I think it's really, really well acted. I think the set design and the costume designs are amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I know you mentioned, and one of the big things that people talk about with Bridgerton is the sex. is the sex. And I know you, because I remember watching it going, I think it's not particularly, I know you've referred to it, you're not the only person who referred to it as raunchy. You're not the only person who referred to it to be as raunchy. I remember watching it going,
that's the books though. It's one to do. That's the nature of the beast with that type of book. It's just very unusual for it to be made into film.
But the thing about it is that the books are, from what I can understand, they're written more for like a sort of young adult audience.
They were written 20 odd years ago, so they were written for pre-Kindle. So you get a lot of this sort of bodice ripper written now for like the Kindle audience, but this was written they're written like the end of the 90s, early noughties, so 20 years ago.
Was it like the adult end of the Mills and Boon scale?
Yeah, they were like the sort of like the saucy bodice rippers.
Bodice rippers. That's what. That's a great.
Who want to read this sort of historical fiction and don't mind it being a bit saucy.
Yeah,
so it's aimed at. I could list off a whole list of sort of authors who specialised and made a fortune from this. It's like the Historical Romantic Writers Association of America. There's lots of them out there, and Julia Quinn is definitely within that field.
Okay, because I have to admit I actually quite like this, but I really liked it. I thought it was a good show. I thought it was a really, really good show. I would give it a 4 out of 5. But going back to the raunchiness of it, first of all I was like, well, that isn't that bad. But one of the big ones is the length of all of the scenes. They just seem to go on forever. You actually sit down there and go, oh, yeah, not that bad. Oh, we're getting another angle of the same thing. Oh, that is some very realistic rutting that guy's doing there, that the Duke is doing there. And I have to say, it's a bit progressive in that you see more of his naked bum than anything else.
Yeah.
You see more of his naked bum.
There's a lot of buttocks in it. There's a lot of buttocks. Normally, it's all sort of nipples and sort of bosoms really in these heritage songs. But this is written by women for women largely, so it's going to be all the male torso and it's going to be male bums.
Yeah, the TV show created by women
what is it? Why do women like bums? I mean, it always fascinates me. I think the difference between
it's because you can't really show willies on TV.
Oh yeah, no.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's their way of being coy. It's like saying,
well, I mean,
things like 50 Shades, which I didn't think was successful in that regard, but it was a bit like, it's a very coy, but it would like, I might show a little bit of buttock.
Yeah.
A woman is like all out there. It's like, come on, but the men, they're always a bit more coy about men's nudity.
Yeah, I can understand. I can see that. See, I always think that with, I mean,
well, I don't think look at the.
No, but I think that ladies or girls or women, they focus on things, so about themselves and about other people. This is what I think most of the time. So they say, oh, nice eyes, nice hands, nice bum, nice this, nice that, nice the other. Whereas I think with men, we like to see the whole picture. I don't know about you, Tosin.
Oh no, I'm not sure.
Or do you actually pick out features then? Do you actually like?
I have
For me, it's the whole thing.
Okay, and Sean, because we are both respectable, honourable men. Obviously. Never had a bad thought in our lives. We're all about the whole package that comes, including especially the mind. However, I have been in the room at school and at different places. Heck, I was in one of them this morning on a Zoom meeting where when all the women left, all the guys start talking, and you do have people who talk about things like, oh yeah, nice rack or nice pair of whatever. Oh yeah, no, had a bum like a. So no, you do have men who do focus on these things.
Oh, right. Okay.
And when it comes to when you want to come into sort of like some sort of film theory thing, there's this whole thing about the male gaze where. Usually when you watch a film, and if you want to say, oh, this woman is attractive, because it's a man who's filming her, there's certain things that they focus on. Like you talk about things like the Avengers poster, the fact that there was a big deal made of the fact that on the Avengers poster for the first Avengers movie, the way like all of the superheroes they're all posing, but for some reason you can see Scarlett Johansson's bum. And it's actually quite prominent on the poster, and it's like, why are we seeing her bum?
Toes. You mentioned Robo Chicken.
Yeah, Robo Chicken.
You mentioned Robo Chicken. Yeah, right. You need to see, right, just on that point we're talking about, watch the Avengers special on Robo Chicken.
Okay, cool.
The Avengers special, right, where they're all sorted together, and it's like, and you've got Black Widow in it, and all those others. So check that one out, and what we're talking about there.
Yeah.
Quite funny, So why do we keep you? Anyway,
It does, but I think with things like Bridgerton, I think because it is written by a woman for women, and you get the feeling that the television program is very much made by women who are sort of, the creative force behind it. You've made things that you don't normally see in historical drama because it is actually quite a feminist approach.
Yeah, and Julia Quinn herself has actually said that she gives her female characters so feminist attitudes that they would not have had at that point in time.
Yeah.
And
that they would have been quite ruined in society if in that class.
Yeah.
Had they done half the things they would have done.
So
that's why it's fantasy. Yeah. It isn't historical drama. It's fantasy.
It isn't there for historical accuracy, but I actually quite like that. Like for instance, the colorblind casting, which is something that she's done in all of her shows. Like she just puts different people in different places, and there's one reference to the fact that you have non-white people in high positions of power. There's one reference to it, but then apart from that, it's not mentioned again.
Yeah, because I think they just want to say, you know what, we'll get this out of the way so that you can stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I think it was quite good that they did actually address that, because I think people have been thinking, you don't, because in the ballrooms it's like you wouldn't get such a diverse sort of people dancing around, because in the ballroom scenes it is more noticeable.
It's United Colours of Benetton. Regency style.
Because it's completely sort of diverse. You know, every nation in the world is sort of represented, and culturally with some of the dress. It's just like, well, okay, you are embracing the culture of the world, even though this is supposed to be quite a specific period of history.
Yeah, and personally, I'm all for that.
David Copperfield.
The David Copperfield movie. So the thing I would say that is like, because I'm the kind of person where I always feel like I never feel like nudity is called for in a story. I feel like there's ways of telling the story without having like blatant nudity. But if you're going to have it, I'm like, if you're going to have it, then let's have it equal. If we're going to have like, you know, the women standing there with no clothes on, let's have the men standing there with no clothes on. And I think the fact that I applaud the fact that they had, for the second half of this season, so there's 8 episodes. I'm pretty sure for the last four episodes, you see a lot of the Duke's bum. You see a lot of naked Duke, and
like the honeymoon montage.
Oh, the honeymoon montage! They essentially have a whole episode that's pretty much imagine if you had a castle, and it's pretty much this newly married couple just shagging in every single room, in every single possible position, and that's what the entire episode is. And I'm watching it going, this is different. This is different. But I have to say, it is probably one of the most effective references or uses I've seen of linking love to sex and love to what you do. It's probably one of the most effective things I have seen, because they keep showing all these long scenes that seem to be shot in real time of how long it would take if people were actually having sex, and they have all these long scenes, and I'm like, why the heck are these scenes so long? Why the heck are these scenes so long? What are they doing? And then the final scene that they show in the entire show, I'm like, oh, that's why the scenes are so long. That's kind of clever, even though it's a bit harrowing. But so anyway,
how did you feel about? I know we've already discussed this before, but now that you've seen it, how do you feel about the issue of consent? Because there's one particular scene that's quite controversial. It was controversial in the books 20 years ago, and I've seen discussion about it. But there's an issue of consent, but it isn't female consent; it's male consent about one particular issue in the series.
Does this have to do with Miss Thompson and Colin Bridgerton?
No. This is about the Duke and his Duchess.
Oh, yes, that would see. I never thought about it.
It's quite controversial because they're saying, because it's a man, it doesn't mean consent is any less
important. It doesn't. But my knee-jerk reaction is, well, he had it coming. Because of what he did before that. Okay, I think essentially there's 2 characters in it, the Duke and the Duchess, who I think there are bits where they act like teenagers, and it annoys the heck out of me because they don't talk to each other. They just keep and they don't say anything. If they just spoke, things would have been sorted out. But anyway, on that note, if they just spoke to each other, I think things would be sorted out. But the way they did it, I was like, I think he had it coming. Which might not be PC, but I haven't really thought about it that much yet. So anyway, seeing as Sean is tired of us talking about body strippers.
Yeah, I always think in some films, for me, and I mean, I think I've had this conversation with you before, Sharon, when sometimes in films they have like a sex scene, and it's just really, really unnecessary. We know they're going to do it, but it just goes on too long, you know. And it's like, get back to the film. Why have you got to do that? Okay, fair enough. You're going to go and do things, but we know that we do it. Just do it like that, and then get back on with the film. But they do seem to, in some films, have it like it's almost the trope that.
I think with where this is an adaptation of the book, and in the books, intimacy is just like a huge part of the books.
Yeah,
right.
And it's what their appeal has been for a long time. So I think they've to acknowledge the fact that this sort of level of intimacy is key to the is to the development of the books. Is why they've said, you know what, we couldn't adapt this book without having this level of intimacy sort of shown on screen, because a lot of it is about intimacy without actually becoming, you know, that close mentally and spiritually in some ways. It's like saying you can get physically close to someone, but you may not know them very well, and it's about evolving sort of their relationships beyond just the physical.
The difference between love and lust, because I think you can be. I think as well as being in love, you can be in love. You can love someone, or you can lust and think you're in love. I think you can if you lust, you know, and think it's love, but it's not. It's just lust.
And I think that this TV show handles that very well.
Oh right, okay.
I think it actually handles that very well. As much as I think that the scenes are graphic, I look at them and go, but even though I might think the nudity is not needed or anything like that, I feel like they used them well in telling the story. They had a point for them being there, and I think it was like, well, as I said, when it gets to the end, everything comes together. And also, I want to say one thing for an actress called Adjoa Andoh, who plays Lady Danbury. The woman is regal. She is absolutely regal. Oh my God. She's kind of like, you know, when you have someone who comes into a TV show and just eats up everything, the entire scenery, in every single scene that they're in. She's like Lady Bracknell in The Importance of Being Earnest. She is brilliant. I've seen her for years in a whole bunch of things, from Doctor Who to all that kind of stuff. And Adjoa Andoh, brilliant. Anyway, on that note, I think we're gonna stop, because I could talk for years. I could talk for ages. There's some of the lines in this thing that I love and I would love to dissect. like a young girl going, "Oh my God, you can get pregnant without being married," and pretty much I can get pregnant. I've got stuff to do. Pretty much. Which is like one of my lines to do. But anyway, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye for me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
We will see you guys next week when God knows what we'll be talking about.
We don't know what we'll be talking about.